Thank you all for joining us tonight for our quarterly event and our film Act Social. Join with us now as we connect in to the interview in progress. We'll join Virginia Kraft of the Compassion Film Festival as she interviews filmmaker Sean Mulvihill, who is the director and filmmaker of Act Social, as well as the director of the Exuberant Theater Company in New York City. Thank you for being here tonight and enjoy the interview.
Can't believe it happened again, that the water boiler went out. Like, yeah, and then eventually someone will like make a mistake, like because you're making it up on the fly, and the audience will laugh because like you said something stupid that didn't make sense or didn't fit the scene, and then you have to justify it. And then that becomes the funny thing in the scene. So like if you just trust like that you're having a conversation. It's like one of the things I do when I'm directing rehearsal is I'll be like, okay, two people just go up and sit in two chairs. Okay, and just have a conversation. And basically one person interviews the other. And I'm just like, and the audience is watching riveted for 5 minutes. I'll have them do an interview and then I'll stop and I'll be like, hey, was that interesting? And they'll be like, yeah. They'll be like, did you laugh? Yeah. But they were just talking. They were just having a conversation. Yeah, but it was interesting. He was talking about his cat and the weird name that he named his cat. And like, people are interesting. Every person is interesting. And so you need to allow yourself to be seen as the person that you actually are, instead of trying to be this like wacky, clown with a red nose on and makeup and all this big shoes and everything. Like you don't need all that. You just need you. You need to be, everyone is funny. Yeah.
That's so helpful. Thank you so much. And then whenever you're starting a scene like that, is it part of it that you should try not to ask questions? Because in the rehearsal, that was something I kept going to, because I found that in everyday life, in conversations, ask a lot of questions. And so I brought that to the table, and it wasn't invited. It was, but it wasn't encouraged.
Questions are okay. A lot of improvising teachers tell you not to ask questions because they've heard to say that. But the reason why questions would be a bad thing is only when you're putting too much of the burden on your scene partner. Okay, so if like you're like, hey, what should we do today? What was that thing that you said to the guy at the bar? Like you're making your scene partner come up with all the ideas. That's the only reason why they say that. It's not about, there's nothing. So if a teacher tells you not to ask questions just as a blanket rule, that's ridiculous. People ask questions all the time in real life. But some improv teachers, like they've only taken, a few levels of improv, and then suddenly they're the teacher sometimes, and like they spout that. So there's a lot of people out there like, don't ask questions. Like I said, like teaching scenes are boring. Like they'll say like no teaching scenes. Like no, you can do a teaching scene, just don't make it boring. You know what I mean? Like don't make it like, like we were talking about, like the main problem is people try to be funny, try to be interesting, try to do all the stuff that they don't need to do. You just need to be you and answer respond and add something, and then eventually you build a base reality. So it's like, oh, they're best friends, they work together, they had a bad day at work, there was an accident on the job, and their names are Steve and Joe. Okay, and then we've got all that, and the audience wants to know what's happening because it's real. Like, but you set off all these red flags in the audience's mind if you try to do too much. And so yeah, well, I already said that, but your question about questions is that no, there's nothing wrong with questions. It's just don't use a question to get out of adding something to the scene.
That's really great advice. Thank you for that. It clarifies a lot. And it looks like there is a question from the audience. So it is, what changes would you love to see people putting into practice after having watched Act Social?
Well, I mean, one of the things, probably the scene of the movie that I'm most proud of is that town hall thing that we pulled off with the different political people. Um, I had high hopes, at the very beginning of this that I would like get all these like big senators and stuff to improvise with each other. And it looked for a moment that it was going to happen. And then the pandemic hit, and I was just like, I don't know, maybe we could do this once this is all over. But it's like, I want to, let's release this movie and move on with our lives. You know what I mean? Like already been working on it for 3 years. So, so I guess what I'm saying is like, when you disagree with other people, um, and you want to, and okay, when something goes wrong, whether it's in your family or your close relationships, or it's on a national level, there's a tendency to want to place blame. And okay, so you want to place blame, and you want to look, everyone, like, I think our egos, try to place like, I'm this innocent, just good intentioned person that just, you know, um, I I can do no wrong, and any wrong that I've done was completely justified, right? Like there's exact reasons why any wrong that I've committed in my life was completely justified. I had to do it. I think most of us think that way about ourselves. So why don't we allow that courtesy to the other people? It's like, you don't think that they're justified in their own mind about why they believe what they do and why they do what they do. It's ridiculous to think that way. We all think that way. And so like, so to just to yes and the whole, political discourse is just to say, okay, this guy believes what he believes, and this, and I don't agree. But to think that that person's going to change because you're like, here's this article that I read on the internet, and so once you read this, you're going to change your mind, is just, it's not smart. Like, it's just not going to happen. No one likes being told they're wrong, even when they're wrong, which is what Norm says in the movie. And that holds true. And I know it's true. You know it's true. No one likes being told they're wrong, even when they're wrong. Some people might say that they do, but I don't necessarily believe that. People like to be. I mean, I like constructive feedback, but I don't like someone to be like, especially like in front of other people too. I mean, a lot of this political stuff that's going on is because it's in the public arena. Because you don't want to be humiliated. Like, okay, once you've humiliated me, now I have to double down on my stupid idea, even though probably in the back of my mind I know I was wrong, and I know I shouldn't be putting plastics into the ocean with my company, but now I have to, because I got to double down and look strong. I can't look weak now. So like, you back people into a corner when you shame them and humiliate them in public and force them to double down on their poor ideas. But if you give people a chance to save face, you know what I mean? Like, that used to be a thing. I haven't heard the phrase save face in a long time, but I do believe that that's, like, you want to defuse like a situation, you have to allow the person to save face. I mean, that's what hostage negotiators do. Like when someone's put all these people in at gunpoint in a bank or something, they come in and be like, hey, I can, like, we want to get you out of here safe. Like they act like their friend. They don't come in and be like, you jerk, we're going to throw you in the slammer for 1,000,000 years. Like, that's not going to get the situation resolved. You have to negotiate. You know what I mean? You have to be. So it's like, what happened to that quality? Like, why does everyone think the best methodology is to be like, oh, I'm going to put the meanest post about this person on, and that's going to change everything. I'm going to type this up, and oh man, I'm going to get them so good. It's like, you're not doing anything. You're just adding more problems to the situation. So if all these people say I want to be a solution, but all I am is like this whistleblower, it's like, we got enough whistles. We don't need any more of that. What we need players on the field who are saying, good game. We're going to use sportsmanship. I really think that there's so many good intentioned people here that really want to help the world and help other people, and yet they'll think that 50% of the people in the world are not capable of helping, and they're like 100% evil. It's like, you need to see the good in people, and I think improv really helps you like that. Like, I had one improv coach, Kelly, their names are Kelly and Justin. They're a married couple, and it's so funny because, like, I guess Kelly Clarkson and Justin Guarini had this thing going on for a while. So they're like, so that's their whole joke. But anyway, but they do this whole thing about loving your scene partner. It's like, love everything your scene partner says. Always start out liking the person you're in the scene with. And they do a whole workshop on that. And I really enjoy it. So, finding something that you can like about a person, even if it's just like, well, I like that guy, that other political party person. I like his hair, nice hair. At least you like something. Find something you like about people. That's what I would say.
I love that. Thank you so much. If we could all operate from this place of interconnectedness and being on each other's team, encouraging one another, it would be really beautiful. Thank you for that. We have another question from Laura in the audience. She says, Sean, thanks for bringing such a broad view of improv and its applications and potential. Fascinating. In the film, there were several references to generosity. Can you talk more about what you see is the connection between improv and cultivation of generosity?
That's really something that I take from like acting, growing up and doing acting. A lot of times when you see a famous actor talk about working with Meryl Streep, like inside the actor's studio or something, I'd be like, oh, she's just so generous on, when we're in a scene. And usually what that means is like, she's fully present, she's fully invested in the stakes of the scene. Like, if she's there, it seems real to her, and she's in it, and she's really fighting for what she wants as this character. And it makes your job easier as the other actor, because you don't have to supply their reactions. So I think for me, it's like, are you fully in it? It was just like, it's just like the idea of putting your cell phone on the dinner table when you're out to a restaurant. Like a lot of people are just like, got the phone right next to them. It's like, like if the phone rings, they're looking at, like, why? Like, it's going to be there afterwards. It's not always an emergency. So I think it's like being present in the moment you're in makes you naturally generous, because you notice people and give them that attention. There's I'm trying to think. I think it's Don Miguel Ruiz has a book called The Four Agreements.
That's
and
right.
Actually, the movie that I did with Eckhart Tolle that we show in this movie for a second, Don Miguel Ruiz was in that too. So I met him, and one of the things that he talked about is like little kids from the time they were born, like we're always like, Mom, Dad, look at me, trying to pull attention in our direction. And so one of the greatest things that you can do for a person is to give them attention. And it's, and I think that when we don't get that attention that we want as kids, a lot of times that's when people do become like a delinquent kid, because at least you're getting some attention. It's negative attention, but at least you're getting some attention, And so now I'm just going on tangents, but there's another book about marriages. And there's this guy, I can't remember what the name of the doctor is, but he's a marriage counselor and a doctor. And he did a study where he met with like 1,000 married couples, and he watched for 4 things. I did 3, but I meant 4. He watched for 4 things and then he coded it. And then he was able to tell with 97% accuracy which couples would be divorced in 3 years. And then he brought them back, and he was, right. And so one of the things they asked for was like, it was like stonewalling, resentment. I can't remember what. There was like 4 things that like people do where it's just like, so you come home and you like, say you just got a promotion at work, and you come home and your spouse is reading the newspaper, and you're like, hey, guess what? I got a promotion. They're like, oh yeah, that's great, really great. And then just like, don't even put the newspaper down. That's like a -1. And so like and so it's a bid for attention. And so like, yeah, you're already happy about the promotion, but you want to share it with someone. It's like, we want to share life with other people. And so I think that giving someone that attention and being present to them is like one of the best gifts that you can give, and it doesn't cost anything, and like, I think that's what generosity can be. It's, it's just about giving your attention to whatever you're doing. And I really, I really want to strive for that in my life, because I know, like, even with the phone now, like I have it almost in my hand a lot, and like I'm always, and it's taking me away from just being there. And when I went camping, like, I don't know, about 2 months ago, yeah, in September, I went camping. I turned my phone off for 48 hours and was just out there. And man, it was so nice. Like, it really was. And then I met all these people. I went camping by myself out in Montauk, and I met the people that were next to me, and like then they like invited me to have breakfast, and they made this like huge like Dutch oven breakfast thing, and then I came over and like, and we all had surfboards and stuff, because there was a swell, supposedly a swell that week, and it was just like a really good time. And like I wouldn't have, if I'd been, I don't know, on my phone taking pictures or whatever I would have been doing, because I'm by myself and I don't want to look like a loser who went camping by himself or something, and like, or be like just like bored and I need something, like I met people, adventures can happen when you're present to this moment. So yeah, I think there's just so much to it, but I think that has a lot to do with it. Paying attention is generosity.
Yeah, very well said. From the little experience I had with improv, I can see how listening and the generosity of listening and paying attention really comes into play on the stage. So thank you for the elaboration. We have a couple more questions from audience members. From Rita, she says, watching the town hall experience brought to mind the value of improv employed in conflict resolution. The Reuniting America movement could use this tool. Have you ever been approached to do more with divisive situations?
I hmm, I personally haven't been approached, but Don Weissenen, who ran that part of the movie, he wrote a book called Improv for Democracy, and that came out in January. And he's been working with a few different organizations on arranging more of these town halls, and he's kind of would like to sort of do sort of a national tour of different, you know, town halls, and do that and kind of spread this idea. Um, However, when I was talking with Donna Hicks, the woman at Harvard who wrote the book um, about dignity, and and she's worked in a lot of conflict resolution situations, she said we never go anywhere uninvited. We're only doing this when someone does invite us, like you said in in this question, that there's got to be a willingness, I think, to be so like when the people wrote A Course in Miracles. I don't know if you know that story. They were like two professors at Columbia, like psychology professors at Columbia University, and everyone in the whole department was just like so snipey at each other, and it just wasn't going well. And eventually, like, out of desperation, they're like, there's got to be another way. Like, why can't we get along with each other? And then, like, she starts dictating this book, after that, because she sort of like asked the universe for this answer. And so I think once you have that openness where you say, like, I don't want to live in a country where half the people hate each other. I want to live in a country where everyone like sees the value of the other guy's idea. That eventually people are going to ask that. It's my hope that it doesn't get to the point where it's like really bad. Like, because, like, think about, like, after the Civil War was the Reconstruction. You know what I mean? Like, but if people had just sat down and been like, look, people in the South, we gotta move into the 1860s here. Come on, let's just, like, there possibly could have been a way to avoid a war. You know what I mean? Like, but you have to start that early. You can't wait until the brink of war and then be like, oh, we're going to come in and use diplomacy. Diplomacy needs to be deployed much earlier and with much more rigor. And I guess the two sides have to say that's what we want, but they're not saying that yet. it's all a lot of rhetoric, this and that. I don't know. I mean, maybe they've never said that, because there's a new election every 2 years. So then it's like they keep having to do that. They keep having to make the other guy, because that's part of it. I mean, I don't envy that position. It's tough, because you need to make someone the bad guy so that you can build yourself up. I mean, I see that's how it works. It's very tough. But it's my hope that people just eventually come around to the idea that there's a possibility. It's not a zero-sum game. There's a possibility that we can make things work for everybody. A world that more or less works for everybody. But I think others, even smaller situations, whether it's in a small company or whatever. But right now, improv is not the thing. It's not the go-to thing. I hope that it will become more of a go-to thing, but there's, a lot of this research, like that Charles Lim research that he did with Colin, that's in its infancy. I mean, they've done that with like 25 or 30 jazz musicians, I think, and like 10 improv comedians, and they've looked at the brain, but there's not a lot of evidence. There's just like a lot of anecdotal evidence, but there's not a lot of clinical scientific evidence that these people can point to. I mean, I think we saw this with mindfulness, in like the early 2000s to now, that mindfulness practice and meditation was kind of like, yeah, yoga or whatever, like, that's just something that hippies do, but eventually, like businesses found a way that it made them more profitable, and like lots of big companies were like, oh, we should have wellness brands and stuff like that. So once big companies find a way to make money off of stuff, then it comes out there, so I think once people figure out, how can we make money off of improv, then eventually maybe there'll be more of it. It's like we need those like the big corporate titans to feel like, improv, that's the thing I can get rich off. Then it'll be everywhere.
It could be the foot in the door to expand out to people, to really have this therapeutic aspect reach people in the way that mindfulness has. So
yeah.
There's a question from Gwen, and she says, is it possible to improv with yourself? Could this cultivate self-compassion?
Ooh, wow, that's an amazing question. Well, so there's a website that I made for the movie, which is Act Social Film, and then it's got a sister site called Act Social Club. So it's like actsocial.club. And on there, we have like a master class, which is basically like more extended classes with each of the teachers. So it's like 15 hours of stuff. And then I give like an introduction to each thing, and then an outro of each lesson. I think there's 9 lessons. And I give, it's a self-study course. So you watch the videos, and then you have exercises to do. And a lot of those exercises come from Viola Spolin's book, Improvisation for the Solo Performer, or the Solo Actor. And so she has a lot of amazing games that you can do on your own. And also Andy Eniger, one of the guys who, I don't know if he made it into the final cut of the 90-minute version of the movie, but he's a big teacher at Second City, but he's known for his solo improv shows. He'll just get a couple words from the audience, then he'll go for 45 minutes and play all these characters and stuff. And he actually has a section just on solo improv as well. And he's got some amazing things. Like he'll put out 2 chairs in a room and set a timer. And then basically he sits in one chair, he makes a body shape. And then that, whatever the character that makes him think of, he does a line. And then he gets up, makes another body shape, sits in the other chair, and talks back to the other character. And he does some things like that. Like, it's pretty amazing. I mean, he's a virtuoso type of improv talent. But yeah, you can definitely improvise with yourself. Michael Chekhov, one of the other teachers, and I recommend one of his books, he talks about like when you're going in to do a role in acting, that you should close your eyes and sit somewhere quiet and ask your character to come on stage in front of you in your mind's eye. And you can ask your character questions like, how do you walk? did you like going to college, or whatever might be specific to the role. So you could do that with yourself. Like if you were sitting, maybe get into a meditative state, for a few minutes, some deep breathing, and then close your eyes and look, tell yourself to walk on stage and talk to yourself. Be like, how do you see yourself? Show me how you want to be. Show me how you want to dress, and your little character of yourself. You could talk to yourself like that. I mean, I think when you're doing homework. I mean, I think acting, really honestly, like I think every person in the world could benefit from acting classes. Improv and acting, I think, they really make you have this sort of openness, and like you can see the gray area in people, and that's and that ultimately that's where compassion comes from. Like seeing that if I have removed my circumstances and put in your circumstances into my life, I would essentially be you, just with different DNA. And so it's very likely I would have, responded in a very similar way. So that allows us to have compassion. We're all capable of the worst, and we're all capable of the best of human beingness. So just realize that. And when you see another human being, you don't have to label them. You just see another person who's a whole range of possibilities. And I think that's probably the best thing that you could get out of acting stuff. So see yourself with that compassion, and then think about different ways you could go with your life, and yeah, it's an amazing tool to use, but you can do a lot of it by yourself. It's fun to do it in groups, but I think most actors spend a lot of time at home alone. If you're a scripted actor, you do spend a lot of time, imagining things, essentially. Like an artist might stare at that blank piece of paper and then start painting a scene, but an actor is just like, they read a script and it's like, oh, I'm playing a detective. And so, an amateur actor will be like, I'm a detective, so I'm going to talk like this. Oh, hey, where were you last night? Like they just like make some weird voice and just kind of like, but whereas a professional actor who's trained, especially in like the Russian school of Stanislavski, the method, those kind of things, they would think like, detective, like, did I have any other dreams as a kid? Why did I become a detective? Do I like this job? Was my dad a detective? So this is why I went into it. You build this whole story for yourself. And so like there's a whole analysis to being an actor. And so most people don't analyze their lives in that way. And you could use a lot of these acting exercises to like figure out where I've been, and then where I am now, and then where I want to be. So yeah, I definitely think improv, acting, great for solo stuff and self-growth.
That's so wonderful. Before your film, it had never occurred to me that there was that possibility with acting or improv. So I'm really happy to hear more from you. And I feel really fortunate to get real-time responses to this, as it is very inspiring. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Before we close, I would like to ask one final question, a quick question. Is there anything that you're currently working on right now that you'd like to share?
Oh yeah. I'm writing a movie. It's called, it's kind of like a I don't know if it's a rom-com. It's a kind of a romance, but it's called Patience. And but basically it's about how, life, I think Eckhart Tolle said one time, like life is like a flower, like sort of life is like a constantly like unfolding, like almost like a flower opening up, like a rose is beautiful, like kind of like in every stage of its growth. But like if you try to force open those petals, you're never going to get the full bloom. I think you need to just like, I think nowadays with dating and relationships, I think it's so easy for people to be like, you know what, I could probably get something better than this, or like I think people are just kind of like, there's always the threat of people leaving, and so I think patience is the biggest issue. Like allow your life to develop, a little bit and see what happens. Don't be so sure, like I'm guilty of this too. Like, and even like my kind of sort of character in the movie is like, like, I don't like casting directors. I think they're rude, like, I never get auditions, or I don't like, well, no, I mean, that's not totally true. Like, just wait and see, maybe I'll get an audition and it'll be something that I really enjoy, or maybe I'll meet the right teacher that I need that'll show me how to really take it to the next level in my acting work or whatever it might be. I think we want the solution now. A lot of like a Tony Robbins thing he always says, like, God's delays are not God's denials. And I think it's a really it's actually quite wise to think that way. Like, don't think that like you're just one like little piece of a giant universe. So like you really don't know as an individual everything. So a little trust and a little patience. So the movie's about that as it relates to relationships. And yeah, I'm writing that now. So I hope to shoot that this summer coming up, and then have that out for hopefully the following spring. So we'll see if I can stay on that schedule.
That's really exciting. Yes to everything that you just said. That's really cool. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Yeah,
Lovely.
I'm glad you asked about that.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both so much for joining us for this special event. Sean, thank you for staying up so late. For those of you who don't know, Sean's in New York City, so he's quite a bit later than us here in the Mountain Time Zone. So thank you for spending your nighttime with us. We appreciate your extra effort there, and very much we appreciate your work as a filmmaker, producing content that's really healthy and nourishing for people, and offering them a way to engage in compassion and wisdom in their own lives. And thank you for touching on that and bringing that into the interview as well. So Virginia, thank you for being here and for posing these probing questions, and for helping our audience members be heard as well. For those of you who would like to stay connected with us, you can visit us at compassionfest.world. We have an email list there, and we'll be doing these quarterly events in February and May of 2022. We'll have 2 more films. And we also have, I put in the chat, the website, which is actsocialfilm.com. And that's where you can learn more about Sean and his work, and you can encourage him on his way with these future projects of patience and beyond. So thank you both for being here with us tonight. We appreciate your company, your attendance, and attending to Compassion and Wisdom.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Virginia.
Thank you so much, Sean.